If not for the help of the 6 heroes, my martial brothers and I might have lost our lives. Besides, my disgraceful pupil has turned out to possess such a wicked character. He cannot hold a candle to your virtuous pupil. For us martial arts practitioners, character and integrity is of foremost importance. Wugong is secondary. I'm ashamed to have a disciple like this. The duel at Jarshing's Drunken Fairy Inn has reached a conclusion. I admit defeat. Word will henceforth spread throughout Zhonghu that Qiuchuji has been trounced by the 7 freaks of Zhongnan, and I have sincerely and gladly admitted my loss. The 6 freaks swelled with pride as he spoke. Their 18 years of effort in the deserts of Mongolia had finally paid off. Kazhener uttered a few words of humility. But the 6 freaks then thought of their 5th brother Zhang Asheng, who died in the desert, and sadness descended upon their hearts. It was regretful that their 5th brother did not live to hear Qiuchuji admitting defeat. After they had helped Ma Yu and Wang Chuyi back into the inn, Quan Jinfa went and bought coffins to prepare for the Yang couple's funeral. Qiuchuji saw Mu Nianxi grieving sorrowfully and felt awful himself. He said, "Miss Mu, how did your father spend the last few years?" Wiping her tears, Mu Nianxi replied, "My father and I have been wandering for over 10 years, never settling at one place for more than a month. Father said he wanted to look for a brother by the surname Go." Her voice trailed off and she slowly lowered her head. Qiuchuji glanced at Gojing, then said to Mu Nianxi, "How did your father end up adopting you?" "I came from Lotus Pond Village in the Linan Prefecture," she replied. "About 10 years ago, Father took refuge at my place to recover from his injuries. Soon after, an epidemic broke out, killing my parents and brothers. Father then took me in as a daughter and taught me martial arts. To find this brother Go, we roamed all over and started the joust for a spouse." "Ah! Your father's surname is actually Yang, not Mu, so you should change your name accordingly." "No, I won't take the surname Yang. I will still use Mu." Qiuchuji said, "Why? You don't believe me?" Mu Nianxi replied softly, "How would I dare to doubt, priest? But I'd rather my surname be Mu." Qiuchuji saw that she was stubborn and dropped the matter, thinking that she must be too traumatized by the sudden loss of her father to understand. Little did he know that he was the one who did not understand. Mu Nianxi was actually thinking of something else. She had already committed her life to Wang Yankang. Since he was her father's real son, he must of course take the surname Yang. If she had the same surname, how could they marry? Wang Chuyi was gradually recovering his energy after taking the antidote and lay on the bed, listening to their conversation. There was one thing he failed to understand, and so he asked, "How come your Wugong is so much better than your father's?" Mu Nianxi replied, "When I was 13, I met a strange person and he taught me Wugong for 3 days. It's a pity I was born unintelligent, and so didn't manage to learn much." Wang Chuyi said, "He taught you just 3 days of Wugong and you managed to defeat your father? Who is this expert?" "Priest, I won't dare to hide anything on purpose, but he once made me vow that I will never reveal his name." Wang Chuyi nodded and did not question further. Instead, he recalled her stances and moves during her fight with Wang Yankang and tried to conjecture, but still failed to tell which school her Wugong came from. The more he thought about her moves, the more he felt it was peculiar. He asked, "Elder martial brother Q, you have taught Wang Yankang for about 8 to 9 years, right?" "Exactly 9 years and a half, Qiuchuji replied, sighing. "I never thought he would turn out so rotten." Wang Chuyi said, "Thoughts strange. Why?" But Wang Chuyi did not reply. Kazhener asked, "Priest Q, how did you manage to find Brother Yang's descendant?" Qiuchuji replied, "It was such a coincidence. After we lay down the bet, I traveled widely for news of the Go and Yang families. Years passed and still there was nothing, but I did not give up. That year I went again to Ox Village for some clues to their whereabouts, and incidentally saw a few government officials moving objects from Brother Yang's old home. I tailed them, eavesdropping on their conversation. These officials were actually guards of Prince Zhao of the Jin Empire. They were under orders to move each and every item from the house. Broken chairs or iron spears, none could be left behind. I suspected that there was something much more to it, so I followed them all the way to Zhongdiyu. Gojing had seen Bao Ziruo's living quarters in the palace, and now he fully understood. Qu Chuji continued. To find out why Prince Zhao had moved all these old and broken things all the way from Ox Village, I sneaked into the palace at night to investigate. What I saw made me both furious and upset. Brother Yang's wife had become a consort. In my great anger I initially thought of killing her, but then I saw her living in the old house and caressing Brother Yang's spear, sobbing all night. I felt she wasn't totally heartless after all and hadn't forgotten her dead husband, so I spared her life. Later, I found out that the little prince was actually Brother Yang's flesh and blood. When he was a few years older, I started teaching him martial arts. Kazhener said. So all along he was none the wiser about his roots? I did sound him out a few times, but found that he hankered after riches, he replied. He was not a person of integrity, so I never once revealed the truth to him. Every time I tried to teach him important moral principles, he would always behave apathetically and retort with his slippery tongue. If it wasn't for our wager, why would I even waste my time on him? Initially I had hoped for both sides to reconcile no matter who won the duel, and I would tell him the truth about his birth. We would then rescue his mother from the palace and settle down in a quiet area. How was I to know that Brother Yang was alive still? But both Elder Marshal Brother Ma and I were injured by those scoundrels, and still failed to save him and his wife. Hey! Hearing this, Mu Nianxi hid her face and started weeping softly again. Gojing then explained how he met Zhang Taizhen, and how he had seen Bao Ziruo in the night. Everyone agreed that though Bao Ziruo had lost her virtue in Zhao Palace, she was, after all, under the impression that her husband was dead. In the end she still followed her husband in death, and there was no one present that did not admire her loyalty and sigh at the tragedy. The conversation then shifted to the mid-autumn duel. Zhu Chong said, but the Quanzhen 7 will be assembled there. What have we to worry? It's just that they might bring along a multitude of good fighters to outnumber us, said Ma Yu. Qu Chuji said. Which other good fighters can they bring along? Are there that many good fighters in the world? Ma Yu sighed. Younger Marshal Brother Q, your skills have improved greatly in the past few years and brought glory to our sect. Yet, you still haven't been able to curb the arrogance of youth. You. Qu Chuji laughed and completed. I must know that there will always be a higher person, like there will always be a higher heaven. Ma Yu smiled. Isn't it so? The people we met just now really possess skills that are no lower than ours. If they invite more fighters of their caliber to Misty Rain Inn, then it's hard to tell who will win. Qu Chuji cocked his head proudly and said, Elder Marshal Brother, you worry too much. Is it even possible that Quanzhen sect would lose to that bunch of thugs? Ma Yu replied, nothing is certain in this world. If not for Brother K and Brother Zhu, the decades-old reputation of Quanzhen sect would have been ruined in the hands of us three martial brothers. Kazhener and Zhu Chong declined modestly. It was just because the opposition employed dirty tricks. How can it be taken into account? Ma Yu sighed again. Martial Uncle Zhu was taught personally by teacher, and his skills are 10 times better than ours. Alas, because of his stubborn and competitive nature, he has gone missing for over 10 years. We must take this as a lesson and always remain cautious. Now that Ma Yu phrased it this way, Qu Chuji did not dare to rebut. The 6 freaks never knew the Quanzhen 7 had a martial uncle. From Ma's words, they deduced that this matter was not something that Quanzhen sect was proud of. It would not be tactful to make any comment, and so they refrained, but nevertheless they were curious. Wang Chuyi listened to their dialogue but remained silent, mulling over something. Qu Chuji glanced at Go Jing and Mu Nianxi. "Brother K, you have nurtured a fine and gallant disciple. With such a son-in-law, my brother Yang will be able to rest in peace." Mu Nianxi's face reddened and she stood up. Lowering her head, she walked out of the room. Seeing her stand up and take steps, a notion flashed through Wang Chuyi's mind and he got out of bed, sending his palms straight at her shoulder. This move was swift, and by the time Mu Nianxi sensed it, his palm had already reached her right shoulder. He paused there for a moment, waiting for her to exercise internal energy to resist. At the moment where the energy was just about to reach, but not yet, Wang Chuyi yanked her shoulder. So distinguished a character was the iron-footed fairy, Jade Sun Wang Chuyi, even though he had not recovered from his heavy injuries and his arms devoid of internal energy, he was still able to pinpoint the void in her circulation passage. With this push and pull, Mu Nianxi swayed and instantly fell forward. Wang Chuyi extended his right hand to support her right shoulder, and she was upright again, beyond her control. Her lovely eyes widened with a mixture of surprise and bewilderment. Wang Chuyi laughed and said, "Don't be frightened, Miss Mu, I was just testing your kung fu. The senior expert who taught you for 3 days, did he dress like a beggar and have just 9 fingers?" Mu Nianxi said in surprise. "Eh? Yes, that's right. Priest, how did you know?" Wang Chuyi smiled. "This 9-fingered divine beggar, Elder Hong, goes about things in a truly mysterious manner. It's just like seeing the heavenly dragon's head but catching no hint of the tail. To have been taught personally by him is your great fortune and a cause for celebration. It was a pity he was busy and only taught me for 3 days." Wang Chuyi let out a sigh. "You should be content. You have gained more in those 3 days than what others can teach you in 10, 20 years. Mu Nianxi said. "Priest is right." After a brief pause, she continued. "Priest, do you happen to know where Elder Hong is?" Laughing, he replied. "Now you've had me stumped. I last saw him at Mount Hu over 20 years ago, and have never heard from him since." Disappointed, Mu Nianxi walked slowly out of the room. Han Zhaoying asked, "Priest Wang, who is this Elder Hong?" Wang Chuyi smiled and seated himself on the bed. Qu Chuji said, "Heroine Han, have you heard of the Eastern Heretic, Western Poison, Southern Emperor, Northern Beggar and Central Divinity?" Han Zhaoying replied, "I've heard people say these are the 5 strongest martial artists in the world, but I don't know if it's true." Qu Chuji said, "It is." Ke Zhen'er said, "So this Elder Hong is the Northern Beggar?" Wang Chuyi said, "That's right. The Central Divinity refers to our late teacher, Reverend Wang." Upon hearing that this Elder Hong was mentioned alongside the Quanzhen 7 Seconds teacher, they were immediately filled with awe. Qu Chuji turned and smiled at Go Jing. "This wife of yours is the disciple of the great 9-fingered divine beggar. Who would dare bully you in future?" Go Jing felt his cheeks burn and wanted to dispute this, but he just stammered and did not manage to say anything. Han Zhaoying asked, "Priest Wang, how did you tell that she was taught by the 9-fingered divine beggar by just pushing her shoulder?" Qu Chuji motioned for Go Jing to come over, and Go Jing went to his side as instructed. Qu Chuji pushed Go Jing's shoulder with his palm, exerting pressure with internal energy. But Go Jing had cultivated profound internal energy under Maya's guidance, and also endured over 10 years of hard physical training from the 6 freaks. As a result, he had considerable internal and external strength. With this push, Qu Chuji could not bring him down. Laughing, he said, "Good lad." And the pressure loosened. Go Jing had exercised his internal energy to resist the push, and now he relaxed both outwards and inwards. Quick as lightning, Qu Chuji seized this instant. Go Jing's earlier energy had dissipated and his new wave of energy had yet to catch on, leaving a gap. With a light pull, Go Jing fell backwards. He extended his hands and, using his fingers, propelled himself upright again. Everyone burst out laughing. Zhu Chong said, "Jinger, remember this expert move that Priest Q taught you?" Go Jing nodded in obedience. Q Chuji said, "Heroine Han, when pulled by the shoulder, all martial artists in the world will fall backward if they are unable to resist. But with the unique kung fu of the nine-fingered divine beggar, one will fall forward instead. This is because his kung fu is rooted in extreme, rigid toughness. When faced with strength, it responds with greater strength. Though Miss Mew only spent 3 days under his tutelage, she has evidently grasped his martial arts philosophy. Though she was unable to withstand younger martial brother Wang's pull, she refused to succumb to the situation. Even if she had to fall, she would fall in the opposite direction of the enemy's strength." The sixth freak thought what he said made sense, and admired Quan Zhenset's proficient knowledge. Zhu Chong said, "Priest Wang has seen the nine-fingered divine beggar display his kung fu?" Wang Chuyi said, "Over 20 years ago, my late teacher competed in the Mount Hua tournament with the nine-fingered divine beggar, Huang Yaoshi and the other greats. Elder Hong's kung fu was truly outstanding, but he was also very gluttonous, and Mount Hua was short of delicacies. Feeling extremely bored, he took sword as wine and fist as dishes and began chatting about the theories of sword and fist with my late teacher and elder Huang Yaoshi. At that time I was waiting on teacher and was very lucky indeed to have heard these brilliant theories. In fact, I learned a lot." Ke Zhen'er said, "Oh, so out of the Eastern heretic, Western poison, Huang Yaoshi must be the so-called Eastern heretic?" Q Chuji replied, "Correct." He then turned to Go Jing and said jovially, "Though elder martial brother Ma has taught you some internal energy, luckily you are not officially his disciple. If you start comparing seniority, you'll be one level lower than your wife. Then you'll never be able to raise your head in this life." Go Jing went red. "I'm not marrying her." Startled, Q Chuji said, "What? I'm not marrying her." Go Jing repeated. Q Chuji's face sank and he stood up. "But why?" Ever doting on her disciple, Han Zhaoying saw that Go Jing was in a tight spot and hurriedly explained on his behalf. "We received word that Master Yang's child was a male. Thinking that the betrothal agreement was annulled, Jinger has already gotten engaged in Mongolia. The Khan of Mongolia, Genghis Khan, has appointed him as his imperial son-in-law." Q Chuji's face hardened and he glared at Go Jing. Laughing icily, he said, "Brilliant, this girl is a princess, a precious imperial descendant. Commoners can't hold a candle to her, so you're just going to conveniently ignore the wishes of the dead? You lust for riches and betray your roots. How different are you from that scoundrel Wang Yankang? And what of your late father's wishes?" Panicking, Go Jing bowed. "I have never met my father, and my mother has never mentioned anything about his wishes. Priest, please enlighten me." At this, Q Chuji lost his cold smile and his expression softened at once. "So you are really not to blame. I was too quick to jump to conclusions." He then explained everything from beginning till the end, his meeting with the Go and Yang brothers 18 years ago in Ox Village, the slaughtering of soldiers at night, his search for the Go and Yang families, his misunderstanding with the 7 freaks of Jiangnan and the wager that followed, etc. Now knowing the circumstances of his birth and how everything had begun, he broke down in sobs. His father died a horrible death and had yet to be avenged. He then thought of the great kindness of his 7 teachers. How could he even hope to repay them in this lifetime? Han Zhaoying said kindly, "It's very common for a man to have more than one wife. Just let the Khan know about this and marry both women. That way, all your problems will be solved. I reckon the Khan himself has even more than 100 wives." Wiping his tears, he replied, "I can't marry Princess Huazeng. Surprised, Han Xiaoying asked, "Why? I don't like her as my wife." "But haven't you always been on very good terms with her?" "I view her as a younger sister and a good friend, but I certainly don't want her as my wife," Qu Chuji said happily. "Good child, you've got a backbone. Con or not, princess or not, who cares? Just obey your father and Uncle Yang, and get married with Miss Mu." Unexpectedly, Go Jing shook his head again. "I won't marry Miss Mu either." Everyone present was bewildered, not knowing what was running through his head. But Han Xiaoying was a woman, and she paid heed to details. "You like someone else?" she asked gently. Go Jing blushed and, after a moment or two, nodded his head. Han Baoju and Qu Chuji asked sternly in unison. "Who is it?" Go Jing opened his mouth to answer, but faltered. During the fight with Mai Chaofeng and the others in the palace the previous night, Huang Rong had the attention of Han Xiaoying. She had secretly marveled at this girl with her graceful movements and a face as delicate as those you only see in paintings. Thinking back, Huang Rong did seem very affectionate towards Go Jing and had been looking out especially for him. Han Xiaoying asked. "It's the young girl who dressed in white, isn't it?" Go Jing went red as he nodded. Qu Chuji said impatiently. "What young or old girl in white or black?" Han Xiaoying muttered to herself. "I heard Mai Chaofeng call her little martial sister and address her father as teacher." Qu Chuji and Kei Zhen'er stood up at once and said together, flabbergasted. "She's Huang Yaoshe's daughter?" Holding Go Jing's hand, Han Xiaoying asked. "Jinger, is her surname Huang?" Go Jing answered. "Yes." To this, Han Xiaoying was speechless. Kei Zhen'er muttered. "You want to marry Mai Chaofeng's younger martial sister?" Zhu Chang asked. "Her father has betrothed her to you?" Go Jing replied. "I've never met her father, nor do I know who her father is." Zhu Chang asked again. "So you have an illicit engagement?" Not knowing what an illicit engagement meant, Go Jing widened his eyes and did not reply. Zhu Chang continued. "You've told her that you will definitely marry her, and she's also said that she'll definitely marry you, is that right?" Go Jing replied. "Never said that." After a brief pause, he continued, "We don't have to say it. I can't do without her, and she can't do without me. We know this in our hearts." Having never experienced the feeling of love, Han Baoju was displeased upon hearing this and said impatiently, "What nonsense is this?" However, Han Xiaoying's mind fleeted to Zhang Asheng. Among us 7 freaks, fifth brother's character was the most similar to Jinger. But he only loved me in secret. He always thought he wasn't good enough for me and so he never expressed his feelings. Was it like Jinger and that girl? What with we both know it in our hearts. I can't do without her, she can't do without me. If I had let him know just a few months before he died that I actually couldn't do without him, he would have at least a few months of true happiness in his lifetime. Zhu Chang said calmly. Her father is a ruthless monster who kills without blinking, did you know that? If he found out that you got close with her daughter in secret, how could even you hope to live? Mai Chaofeng hasn't even learned 1/10 of his kung fu and she is already so formidable. If the master of Peach Blossom Island wants to kill you, who will be able to save you? Go Jing said softly. Wronger is so nice, I doubt her father will be a bad person. Bullshit. Han Baoju berated. Huang Yaoshi is utterly evil, how could he not be a bad person? Quickly vow that you'll never see that little demoness again. Because the twin killers of the Dark Winds had killed the laughing Buddha Zhang Asheng, the 6 freaks bore a grudge as deep as the oceans towards them and hated their teacher to the core. They all thought that the kung fu the twin killers used to kill Zhang Asheng was taught by Huang Yaoshi. If there was no Huang Yaoshi in this world, Zhang Asheng wouldn't have died. Go Jing was in an extremely difficult position. On one hand was his deep gratitude towards his teachers, and on the other hand was a love both sincere and true. If he could never see Ronger ever again, how could he live on? His teacher's eyes were fixed sternly on himself, and with an aching heart, dropped down to his knees, tears streaming down his cheeks. Han Baoju stepped forward and said harshly, "Say it. Say that you'll never see that little demoness again." Suddenly, a clear female voice shouted from outside the window. "Why are you forcing him like this? How shameless!" Everyone was startled. That girl called, "Jing Gerger, hurry outside." Surprised and delighted to hear it was Huang Rong, Go Jing dashed outside and saw her standing at the courtyard with his blood-sweat horse. The little red horse saw Go Jing and let out a long neigh, raising its front hooves. Han Baoju, Quan Jinfa, Zhu Chong and Qiu Chuji followed him out of the room. Go Jing said to Han Baoju, "Third teacher, thoughts her, she's Ronger. Ronger isn't a demoness. You ugly and short fatty, why did you call me a little demoness?" Huang Rong scolded. She then pointed to Zhu Chong and said, "And you, sly and sloppy scholar. Why did you say my father's a monster who kills without blinking?" Not taking a little girl to heart, Zhu Chong merely smiled. Looking at Huang Rong, he thought that her beauty was indeed peerless, and none he had seen in his life could match hers. No wonder Jinger was so crazy about her. Han Baoju, however, was absolutely furious, so much so that the mustache at the edge of his lips had curled. He yelled, "Get out, get out!" Huang Rong started clapping and singing. Shorty gourd, tumbling ball, with one kick, rolls 3 times. With 2 kicks. Go Jing exclaimed, "Ronger, stop being naughty. These are my teachers." Huang Rong stuck out her tongue and made a face. Moving forward, Han Baoju struck out his arm to hit her. Huang Rong sang again. Shorty gourd, tumbling ball. All of a sudden, she reached out and grabbed the cloth on Go Jing's waist. With a hard tug, both of them had mounted the horse together. With a lift of the reins, the little red horse bolted forward and away like an arrow leaving the bow. No matter how fast Han Baoju was, how could possibly he catch up with the lightning pace of a blood-sweat horse? By the time Go Jing had slightly settled himself, he turned his head only to see that the faces of Han Baoju and the others were already blurred. In the next instant they were reduced to little black dots. His own face was wrapped in rushing wind and his ears, enveloped in the sound of it. The little red horse continued to surge forward with amazing pace. Huang Rong held the reins in her right hand and held Go Jing's hand with her left. Though they had parted for less than half a day, they had just only gone through an agonizing experience. Though one was inside the room and the other, outside the window, both had similar feelings of worry and anxiety, and now it felt like they had reunited after a calamity. Go Jing's heart was clouded with indecision. Escaping from his teachers like this was a huge wrong, yet when he thought that he would have to give up this girl in his arms that was dearer than his own life and never see her again, he would rather sever his head and bleed to death. Only after the little red horse had galloped more than 10 li past Yan capital did Huang Rong withdraw the reins and halt, leaping off the horse. Go Jing followed and dismounted. The little red horse kept rubbing its head against Go Jing's waist, displaying great affection. Go Jing and Huang Rong held hands and gazed at each other in silence, each having a multitude of words to say but not knowing where to begin. But even in the absence of words, their hearts were linked and they had long been aware of each other's thoughts. After a long while, Huang Rong lightly released her hand and retrieved a towel from the leather sack on the horse's side. She wet the towel by the small stream and gave it to Go Jing to wipe his face. Go Jing was currently in a dazed state and did not receive the towel, but said suddenly, "Ronger, we have to do it."